All right, so we're going to cover some genetics tonight and look at how you can predict offspring from the traits of parents. So Gregor Mendel, we said, did the observations of pea plants, and he was a mathematician. So his results are his laws are a direct result of probability, and he used statistics to come up with his ideas. So that's how he was able to look at and group and say 1 out of 4 plants would be tall, or 3 out of 4 plants would be short, and that sort of thing. So probability is the likelihood or chance that something will happen. If we flip a coin 5 times, the result may be all heads or all tails. If we flip a coin 100 times, it's much more likely that it's going to be closer to 50-50. So the same thing would have been applied to Mendel. When he was growing up his pea plants that we talked about in the last video, he had to grow up a lot of them to come up with equal ratios. So there's some of Mendel's laws. There's 2 factors, which we now call genes, for each characteristic, and that could be height or color, etc. Each parent gives 1 factor to the offspring, and then he basically said came up with 2 laws. There's law of segregation, and that says that so each allele, each factor for each trait is passed to the offspring by each parent. So mom passes 1 allele and dad passes 1 allele. And then law of independent assortment says that genes for different characteristics are inherited independently. So eye color is going to be passed on by mom, and that's not going to be connected to hair color, skin color. Each one of those genes is going to pass over separately. At least when Mendel studied them, none of them were linked. So some factors are dominant and some are recessive. So we talked a lot about the pea plant experiment last time, but we want to look at and see how we could apply his laws to look at the inheritance of other characteristics in organisms. So we've already looked at purebred plants, and that was, so you don't have to write this slide down, just listen to it. Purebred were the ones that always had the same type of offspring as the parent. And then this next section is also going to be review, so you do not have to write this, but I'm just going to go through it again. Alleles are different forms of a gene. Dominant allele is the one that shows. Recessive allele is the one that would be masked by dominant, and it would only show up when there's 2 recessive alleles. And then independence of events is not something that we have to define, that you have to write down, but I'm going to just talk about it. Each event is a separate entity to which the laws of probability apply. So just like our coin flip, each new generation of plants, it doesn't matter if there was 100 tall plants, it's still going to be a 50-50 shot whether they're tall or short. Just like your coin flip. Doesn't matter if you flip 1,000 heads in a row, flip number 1001 is a separate entity, and it's still a 50-50 chance. So this is so these are some new terms. Punnett square it's a device for predicting the offspring of particular parents. It's the square with 4 boxes. Gametes are what we used to refer to as sex cells that contain the genes the parents are providing for the offspring. So if you're a female, you provide an egg. If you're a male, you provide sperm. And then the mating of 2 parents, we're going to call it a cross. And then the next word is homozygous, and that's when you have 2 alleles with the same expression. And heterozygous is when you have 2 alleles with different expressions. In Mendel's cross, he called those hybrid. So homozygous, when we write them as letters, would be 2 of the same size letters. So 2 capital letters or 2 small letters would be homozygous. Heterozygous is when you have 1 capital and 1 small letter in your cross. And and you'll see it now when we talk about Punnett squares. So the Punnett square just makes it easy to look what the outcome would be if you crossed a single trait. So you need 4 boxes like that. You might want to draw, actually not might, you want to draw this example for a Punnett square so you know what it looks like, and you know what the name of it is. So how can we represent the alleles in a particular cross? You use a capital letter or uppercase letter to represent the dominant, and you use the same letter of the alphabet. So if you use the T, then you're going to use that same, you're going to use a lowercase t for the recessive allele. And be careful when you write them, just to make it easy to distinguish tall from short. It's kind of like math when you're doing addition, subtraction, or whatever. You want to make sure your numbers line up. You just want to confuse what you're doing by having the wrong type of, or not be able to identify your own letter. So in our case, we've got tall for tall, lowercase t for short. Another example, you could have, if purple is dominant, you could have your uppercase P for purple flower, lowercase p for white flower. And then here's our square. And you end up putting them in that, that square there. So let's look at a cross with pea plants. We're crossing purebred tall with purebred short. So that means that all their offspring would be tall for purebred tall, all the offspring would be short for purebred short. We set up our cross first. So write that out first. What does it mean to be purebred tall with purebred short? It's uppercase T, lowercase t, lowercase t. So you're reading that, and you think, what would that cross look like if we wrote the letters? Cover it up, test yourself again. Now take a look. Uppercase T, uppercase, lowercase, lowercase. Okay, now we get our square. We put in our uppercase T's on one side, our lowercase t's on the other. And then this is just like in math, you might be doing this where you just carry the, if you watch my cursor, the uppercase T would go here and here. Another uppercase T would go here and here. Your lowercase t would go here and here. Lowercase t here and here. What you'd end up with in this box is all heterozygous pea plants. One copy of the uppercase T, one of the lowercase t. So here it is again. You already followed my cursors, but just like from the last, what I showed with the cursors, we've brought down the uppercase T here and here, and the uppercase T from here and here. I think it's always easier if you write the uppercase, just pick it, always put it on the left-hand side, and then you put your lowercase t here and here. This lowercase t goes here and here. So now let's look at the two things that I want you to be able to know. So if I ask you what the genotype is, genotype again was what are the genes of the organisms, of their offspring. So they're all uppercase T, lowercase t is the genotype. And you'd write it like this. All heterozygous, T, uppercase T, lowercase. And then the phenotype, what are the physical characteristics? So remember, we're doing tall and short. And we said tall is dominant. So the phenotype, all of these plants would be tall, the offspring. So F1 generation, their first generation of the plant, if you crossed heterozygous with heterozygous. So what I want you to do is set up your square, and I want you to do the cross. Actually run it through, pause the video here, and then once you've finished, replay the video and see if you were right. So let's check it out. Okay, for this one, you should have in this box 2 uppercase T's. In this box, uppercase T, lowercase t. In this box, an uppercase T and a lowercase t. And in this box, 2 lowercase t's. So you have 1 homozygous dominant, 1 homozygous recessive, and 2 heterozygous plants. Now, there it is again. And if you wrote genotype, genotype is 1 homozygous dominant, 2 heterozygous, 1 homozygous recessive. Phenotype is 3 to 1. So here we have a difference. In our first example, genotype was the same ratio as phenotype. In this one, you've got a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio, a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio. And for phenotype, you've got a 3 to 1 ratio. So tall, tall, tall. The only way to show the recessive trait, 2 copies of the recessive trait, and that is a short stem plant. This is, again, review, so you don't have to write these, but you could just read through them again. Genotype is or phenotype is the appearance, the outward appearance of the organism. Genotype is the genetic makeup of the organism. And here's the crosses that Mendel did and the outcomes from them. Like all the different types that you could cross. So see if you can figure them out. Try this question. Heterozygous purple flowered plant with a white flowered plant. And we said purple was dominant, white was recessive. Can try this one out. If you went back to this one to check your answer, if you had a big P, little p parent, and then, so that should be on one side, and then on your other side you should have a little p, you'd end up with 2 heterozygous and 2 homozygous recessive. And for this one, so if the black lab had a yellow mom, thinking about that, for this cross, you can pause it, try it out, and then now that you've unpaused it, black is dominant, so it'd be for the black Labrador Retriever, it had a yellow mom. So yellow mom passed on the lowercase b, and its dad passed on the uppercase b. So we have a heterozygous lab with a yellow lab, and so the yellow is little b, and again, it's just like the top one. You've got 2 heterozygous, so 2 black labs, and then you'd have 2 homozygous, recessive yellow labs for the offspring. And that's it for tonight.